Byron, this is a fairly famous compilation of top 10 surprises every year. Just in terms of the one that you think is the most important, should we assume that it is number one, which is that President Trump starts his own channel, or is there something else you think we should focus mostly on this year?
No, I don't think that one is going to work out. I would say the most important one is surprise, is that we get back to some form of normal by Memorial Day. That one doesn't look very good right now because we're slow to get the vaccines out, but the economy is doing very well in spite of it. But getting people back to work, getting everyone vaccinated, that would be the most important surprise to achieve.
And we're on the way, even as we hit peak in some states for coronavirus infections. Byron, on your list for last year, you said that Democrats would take back the Senate. That was one of your surprises. Right now, it happened to be January 2021, but it did actually happen. And I'm curious as to what that means now for your forecasts for this year, the fact that there's a blue-leaning Senate.
It means that the Democrats will be able to get much of their program through Congress. So I think number 1 and 2 priorities are going to be getting people vaccinated, getting the economy back to normal. But they're also going to have an agenda where they try to deal with the environment. They're trying to deal with inequality. They're going to revise taxes. They're going to reimpose regulation. So they have a broad program that they want to implement, and now they have the support in Congress to get it done.
One of your other predictions, surprises for 2021, as we return to normal economic growth, fairly robust growth, is the start of the longest economic cycle in history, surpassing the one that just ended. What would undermine that? What would be a risk to that view as far as you're concerned?
Well, the risk would be if not enough people get the vaccine and we can't return to normal where people feel they have herd immunity. So that's the risk to it. But if we achieve it, I think the economy already is doing better than I would have expected. I think we can have good growth this year, starting in the second half, but already we're about halfway back in terms of employment and 3/4 of the way back in terms of income, and household net worth is at an all-time high. So the economy is in great shape to recover. All we have to do is feel that we're not going to get sick if we resume our normal lives and get back to work, and the vaccines will provide the mechanism for that.
But Byron, nearly 1 million people still filing initial jobless claims to last week. Do you really feel like we're getting back there labour market-wise? And when will we be below 5% again, particularly for women and minorities?
Yeah, I think that the women and minorities are the hardest hit. I think once we get the vaccines widely disseminated, I think we'll return back to normal. But right now, there's been a surge of cases and a limited number of vaccinations. And so that's a 1-2 punch that really slows things down.
I do want to focus, and this may be a bit of a Canadian bias here, but your prediction for oil and energy stocks is a bullish one. $65 oil, energy stocks, best performers of 2021. Give me your thoughts on how that comes to pass.
Well, if the economy recovers, people start driving again, the industrial part of the economy resumes full activity, and we start flying again, traveling again, theaters open, sports events take place, the demand for energy will escalate significantly. So the energy surprise is totally based on getting back to normal sometime in the second half.
So there has been a lot of discussion about the various shapes of the, economic recovery. Byron, you say the second half, so long as we get those vaccines, and one of your surprises is that we may get up to 10 vaccines by the time we're done. But what kind of shape of economic recovery do you see? Is it a K-shaped one?
Well, I think real growth can be 4%. Nominal growth can be 6%. I think the unemployment rate can get down to 5%. So my view is the economy is already doing pretty well, even with the virus escalating.
So I get...
And not everybody back to work. A lot of people still working remotely. Once we get vaccinated broadly, I think the economy could roar back.
So I get that, your macro forecasts are extremely positive and, based on vaccination, but is it going to be an unequal recovery? Are the spoils going to go to, the top portion of the pyramid, let's say? And if that's the case, is there anything we can do to make this recovery more equal?
That's the risk. But I think the $1.9 billion plan that President-elect Biden has put forth goes a long way to try to deal with the unequal nature of the recovery so far. So Biden has his eye on this problem, and he's trying to deal with it.
And what do you think is the best way to deal with it, Byron? The so-called K-shaped recovery that we talk so much about, there is a sense that economically that lower part of the K is a smaller contributor to GDP. So from a macro point of view, we don't need to worry about it. I'll put that in quotes. But politically, socially, morally, we need to concern ourselves. What is the best way to get the K looking more like what we'd like it to look, which is, I guess a hockey stick, a V?
The best way to deal with it is to get the economy back to normal, because a lot of those lower paid workers work in restaurants, hospitality, transportation. If we get the economy back to normal, those people will find jobs again.
Well, let's hope so. Byron, in your last year's surprises list, your 2020, you said that the House and Senate would send articles of impeachment to the Senate, but that the president would not be convicted nor removed from office. We're here a second time around now. What do you think will happen this time?
Well, I hope that Congress moves forward. I don't think it's worth spending a lot of time convicting Donald Trump of, high crimes and misdemeanors. So, they've impeached him. I wouldn't waste a lot of time trying to convict him. I don't think he'll run for office again. And that would be the one benefit of convicting him, because he couldn't run for office after that. But I think he's lost sufficient support so that he wouldn't be able to run again. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what I think. So therefore, I would have Congress get on to the constructive work of getting the economy back to normal again. That should be their top priority, not convicting the previous president.
And, while Donald Trump may have lost support among party leadership, making his political future uncertain, we have to remember the tens of millions of Americans who've felt strongly enough about a whole set of issues to put him into power in the first place and to vote for him a second time. In terms of addressing their issues, a wealth tax is something that comes up again and again. And it's been kind of a fear out there that it's the Bernie Sanders element of the Democratic Party. It'll come to pass now. Where do you put that on your list of things you worry about or things you think should happen?
It's pretty far down the list of things to worry about. I definitely think taxes for higher income people are going to rise, but I don't think we'll have a wealth tax. In places where they've tried it, it's proven to be very difficult to administer. You have to have people come in and appraise art objects and private businesses. My feeling is taxes on the wealthy are going up, but they're going up on conventional terms. I don't think we're going to have a wealth tax on your total assets.
Byron, what happens to the U.S. China relationship? And obviously, then a subset of that would be trade.
Well, that's one thing I feel really strongly about. I feel that it's not a good thing for the number one and number two economies in the world to be at odds with each other. So my hope is that that one of the number one diplomatic initiative that the Biden administration undertakes is to restore some kind of harmonious relationship with China. Both Trump and Biden talked negatively about this during the campaign. So it's going to have to require a reversal on Biden's part. But we're still buying $100 or $500 billion worth of goods from China and selling over $100 billion of goods to them. And they are our number one trading partner. They are the world's leading manufacturer of high quality, sophisticated goods. And so my view is that we should try to restore normal relations with China. Now, they may feel they don't need us. They made more progress in their economy during 2020 than anybody else. They had real growth of 2% last year. No other major industrialized economy was able to achieve that. They're slated to grow 5% this year or more. So they may feel that they can go on to become the largest economy in the world and the most influential country without us. But I think it's really important to try to reestablish some kind of normal relationship with China. They're too big to ignore.
Yes.
And from an investing point of view, you see opportunity there. That's a place that, despite the political risk that we could identify today, you think that's a place that will be outperforming among emerging markets?
Yes.
Byron, I'd love to ask you about the urban-suburban divide these days. We've seen so much movement out of urban areas. Many banks actually, not even quite sure what will happen with their workforce and their employees. So commercial real estate is really has a question mark over it. You must have seen this before, I'm sure. What happens next?
Well, I think a lot of us have gotten very comfortable working at home and done it pretty effectively. In certain kinds of jobs, you can do that. I would say 40% of the workforce is working at home and accomplishing their goals accordingly. On the other hand, 40% have to come to work and 20% or so were out of work. My feeling is that it's important to get the economy back to normal, but the incremental demand for real estate will diminish. So I think rents will be softer. I definitely think wage pressure will be softer. So I think that's good news for inflation. You may see some inflation from commodities, but basically I don't think inflation is going to be a problem going forward. So I think interest rates are going to stay low. I do think that the demand for office space in major cities is going to be diminished. And that's going to have an impact on state and local taxes. And it's going to have an impact on transportation. And it's going to have an impact on the quality of life, because a lot of restaurants won't be able to open if people aren't going back into the offices.
One of your bonus surprise predictions is Tesla buys one of the big automakers, which to me was reminiscent of AOL buying Time Warner. Can you give me your thoughts on the valuation of Tesla and perhaps by extension the overall equity markets, but particularly Tesla?
Well, big holders of Tesla have really reacted against that one. They said that Tesla has nothing to gain from buying another auto company. So I don't know whether that will happen. And even I was apprehensive about it, and that's why it was an also ran. It wasn't one of the 10 that I picked for 2021. I think, Tesla has accomplished a great deal during its time in business and will continue to do so, and will become the dominant electric car company. But there are other electric car companies that are coming on stream, and part of Biden's economic program is to put charging stations along the major highways. So electric vehicles are on the way. And I think Tesla is going to have competition, but I think it's going to continue to be a viable company. Whether its valuation is justified is another question.
One, no doubt, we can speak about next year. Byron, I have to ask you, your streaming preferences during COVID. Were you into the streaming platforms, and what took your fancy?
Well, I was able to work remotely. I haven't been tested. I'm certainly in the age range where I should get a vaccine as soon as possible. And I'm really urging all my medical contacts to provide it for me. But so far, I don't have a near-term appointment to get a vaccine.